So, hello everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Make Sense. As you all know, we are those guys who get together and talk about stuff that you've heard about but not really thought about. So, let's get started with our latest topic. To get some context about what we do, you can go and check out our previous videos. But today's topic is going to be all about influencers and influential people around us. So, my name is Jethro, and I want to introduce my fellow what I all panelists. So
Keep it
today
natural.
we have with us the very charismatic Mr. Rahil Shah and the very
Also
normal,
charismatic.
basic Anvay Dikshit.
Yes, thanks. Thanks.
So moving on to this topic, my first question to y'all is: when we talk about influencers and people whom we find influential, what is the first thing that attracts you towards them? Is it the prime? Like what is it the aura or the persona that they project towards you? Is it the content they create, or is it the connection they have with their fans and with their following that they build that makes you want to follow them again and again? Because I believe an influencer as a person, it can win you in a process and not in one go, is what is my belief. So do you agree with that, as well as what attracts you towards your favorite influencers?
Rahil, you want to go first or should I
Actually,
go first?
I'm gonna go first because
Cool. Okay, so okay. I don't think I mean I haven't really thought about actually what attracts me as such, but I think after having been using social media and being in this age of social media influencers for like about a few years now, I think all of us have been. I've kind of realized what I go towards now, what kind of people I like to follow. It was very different 5 years ago. Like I'll give you an example. I don't know if you know about this YouTuber called Superwoman,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Lily Singh.
Lily Singh, and
Something
I
like this,
followed.
no? She did?
She
This,
did.
this, this,
What's
something like
up? It's
this.
a rap and zoop something. Not very good memory, but basically,
Yeah.
I followed her. Like she was my first, I think, proper. There was AIB also, but anyways, basically AIB and Superwoman, and mostly
AIB
because
was
the
when all
sister
of us got
followed.
into that zone, yeah.
Yeah.
AIB
AIB was the
especially.
shit. Like when it started, we were all like, "Oh my god, bro!"
100%.
Because
Big
there
fans, big
wasn't
fans.
many at that time. AIB was somewhat like the first
Yeah,
ones
they were
that
the
were coming,
first. They were
right?
the
There was
first
TVF
huge.
before them, but then AIB just won the youth. And
Yeah.
AIB started lingo, so the youth was literally using AIB lingo, like kafi,
Yeah.
kafi this, kafi that is
Yeah.
AIB lingo.
Yeah, dude, genuinely. Actually, yeah, now that I
Very
think
pretty
about it,
much.
when you and me were in JC, you and I
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
use
yeah,
lingo
yeah,
like
yeah,
damn
yeah, yeah,
often. Especially this
yeah.
Vicky Malhotra, this
Yeah, very pretty much.
word pretty thanks. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, basically, yeah, that was the thing. So, and I followed them only because my sister watched their videos. I had no sense of, oh, I'll follow someone because are they adding value to me, or do I find them funny, or do I like a certain quality about them? Nothing. I didn't know anything at the beginning. So that's how it was in the beginning, and from there to today, I think there's been a major like evolution that's taken place for me personally, and I'm sure for everyone else as well, because the internet space from 2013 to 2020 right now has really like changed. And I mean, the game in India is like totally different. I mean, it's so huge. So I think what attracts like what I would like to look for in an influencer, or what kind of a person I would want to follow, or who I would get inspired by, would be someone who is adding some kind of value to my life, like someone who I can follow and also at the same time learn from, get inspired by, and at the same time just look at to like sometimes for motivation, sometimes to learn something. If I don't, if like say for example like beer biceps, okay, I'll just throw his example in here. So he puts a lot of self improvement, self growth type of content, right? And I think I'm in that phase where I want to work on myself, improve myself, do all these things. That's why I automatically kind of like just moved to, when I found his content, I just like slowly started consuming more, because I was like, oh, this is for me, this is helping me grow, so I'm going to consume more of this. And similarly, I think that's what I apply everywhere. So in short, if I have to answer the question in one sentence, now that I'm answering it, I think I'm getting my answer, is basically I'll follow someone who helps me grow, who helps me be the best version of myself every day. I know that's a little like little I don't know,
Cliche.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me
yeah.
but I think that's what it is for me. That's all that it is. Like something value adding, something that helps me grow.
Yeah,
What about you, Raj?
for me also, like, about the value adding part, it applies to me as well. And also in terms of, who I get influenced by, I don't have any specific person that I follow. And to answer your question, which was on what attracts me, whether it's the content or whether it's the charisma, um to some extent it's a mixture of both, but it's also a lot to do with content, because when I'm consuming any information, say on YouTube or wherever, I always look for, interesting titles of, yeah, I might fall, prey to clickbait and all, but I always look for something which is really interesting, which would be something which would give me value, as you said, Anwar. But yeah, and as long as your content is good and all of that, I mean, I enjoy watching it. And not every time someone, like, any person who I usually follow has, the same content, or, like, has the same quality of content. Some videos might dip down or whatever, but then it's not just one person. I'll look at many YouTube channels actually. So there's this one channel called Weird History. So what he does is basically, he posts like tiny 11-minute videos on various historical topics or things that have happened in history. So it'll be rock and roll history, it'll be like, from rock and roll it'll go to Henry VIII, the Victorian Empire, or everywhere. Then in personalities, I do watch a lot of, like, I've watched Sadhguru's videos, and recently I started getting into,
Did I influence you into doing that?
no, no, much before all of this
Acha,
started.
okay.
But I also watch a lot of Devdutt Patnaik. Very recently, I've started, listening to his podcast and all of what he has to say about mythology and, you know, history, ancient Indian history, the Shastras and all of that. And that's really, like, because he doesn't teach you like Shastra mein ye hua. He talks about the stories that you can take back and the morals. Like, each story has a moral, and he talks about that from that story which you take back, rather than debating what are the facts of the story.
Yeah.
And that's something I actually like, because when you're reading a story which was written like so many thousand years ago, like, rather than debating whether this story is factually accurate, listen to what the story wants to say, listen to what the meaning of that story is, the metaphorical meaning or whatever. And because he's focusing on that, that actually I find it gives me a lot of value personally.
So I absolutely agree with what you all said regarding how and what you all chose as your. So it's actually pretty similar what you all said for me as well on how I choose my influencers and how I like them, because uh, I usually don't tend to believe in some influencer or follow an influencer immediately, but there's only one person whom I can like distinctly say changed that entire process for me of liking someone at the first instance, and that's Gaur Gopal Das. But I'll talk about him at length later on in this debate.
Hmm.
Moving on, talking about influential people from the word influencer. Who has been the most influential person in your life? It could be friends, it could be family, it could be anyone. It doesn't need to be a social media influencer for that. It could be a cricketer, it could be a footballer. So personally, for me, it's Steve Smith, the Australian cricketer, because he's even he's my TP as well, like with a wallpaper on my phone.
I never knew this, dude.
So Steve Smith is someone who's literally changed how I think have been thinking the last 1 year. Uh, I was a big fan of him because I loved how he played and the fact that he was outside the game for a year, but still second rated under only after Virat Kohli and the best batsman rankings. Like you don't play for a year, but people can't cross you. That's just crazy amount of good you have to be.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of him, especially the way he batted. But after I watched this Amazon Prime show called The Test, it's completely about the Australian team's downfall and Steve Smith's role in all of that. So the way I saw that guy, like cricket was and batting is one thing he loves the most. So all his teammates always say that Steve Smith is either batting or shadow batting, or else Steve Smith is sleeping. And probably in sleep also, he's either dreaming about batting or else he's batting.
Hmm.
That's how obsessed Steve Smith is with what he does. So he's literally the identity. He's the depiction of loving what you do and doing what you love. So that's the reason I love Steve Smith so much. And when I see that entire story of him getting stuck in the ball tampering scandal to going off cricket for a year and returning and just killing it like a mad guy. I remember the Ashes test. The first three tests, 100 in every innings. They couldn't get him out. He got out literally off the stadium because who's that bowler? Uh, what is his name? A really fast bowler. Jofra Archer, the English bowler,
Uh-huh.
whacked him on his head and he fell. And that's when he had to go out. Otherwise, he wasn't getting out.
Oh shit.
And every time he came into bat, the crowd was booing at him. Okay, like the English fans are bullies,
And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
every time
yeah.
he scored a century and got out, they used to boo him. Okay, even when he's scoring a century, this man fights back, misses a test, obviously because of injury, comes back, scores a double century in the next test, and the entire Lords gave him a standing ovation.
Yeah, dude, I'm getting goosebumps right now hearing that.
And the way his thought process is and the way he thinks, it just completely changed my attitude towards doing things. That if you're doing something, you better be doing it like completely, or else just don't waste your time.
Hmm.
So that's Steve Smith for y'all. What about y'all? Who's the most influential person in your life? Could be anyone. Rahul, go for it.
Yeah, I'll go for it.
So for me, I don't have any one specific person who influences me. I have different people who influence me at different points in my life. So there are qualities in a lot of people. Not everyone has is like an all-rounder for me, but there are qualities from everyone that I really admire. And it's different. Like, I really admire Narayan Murthy and even Mr. Tata, because no matter how big and rich they are, they still are very humble.
Big fan.
Like Narayan Murthy himself, he's so rich, he still travels by economy class, and he'll like humbly he'll go. Ratan Tata, he'll travel in his
Nexon,
Nexa.
Nexon,
Where you're
Nexon,
not showing where,
Nexon.
so from where they are rich, but they don't show it, and I respect both of them for that fact, because I feel that humility is something that should be custodian, and everyone should be humble regardless of what your position is.
Hmm.
And I also derive a lot of like a lot of inspiration from in Stephen Hawking, because the man, his entire life, like he was diagnosed with ALS, and he could not move eventually, and it's a really traumatizing experience for people, but he still made use of the most beautiful organ he had, which was his mind, and he still sat there. He wrote so many books, came up with so many theories, and he did so much work throughout his lifetime. He didn't let that he didn't let his disabilities stop him from living, and that really is like a big influence for me, because that tells me about no matter what happens, you look at these people, they've faced hell, but they've still kept on going. There's a lot of even war heroes who I actually watch, like Captain Vikram Batra, who on the during the Kargil war, the Indian army was pinned down, and the only way the Indians could, like, we could have captured Tiger Hill and all of those places, was if someone went and did a Hail Mary and ran across that. And that's exactly what Captain Bhadra did. He did not give a damn about his life. He just walked out from there, gave it his all. He shot down 5 people over there, and he died because he stepped on a landmine. But because of what he did, we won. We could capture that mountain, and we could actually, it brought us victory. And those kind of stories of valor in the battlefield, it does not only apply to a battlefield, it applies to your life, where
Yeah.
you're left with no choices. You're supposed to make really hard choices, and then it's up to what you do at that moment, and how it affects your future and how it affects your life. So yeah, that's some of the people who have derived influence from.
What about you, Anwar?
I think for me also, dude, there's quite a few. Like, I don't think I'll be able to pick up one, but I guess I can say, or at least begin with someone who had, like, compared to others, the most influence. I would say, dude, it's my sister. Like, I mean, for me, like, I've always like, see, I don't know if it's a thing for everyone, but I think when you have an older sibling, you always like, look at them, at what they are doing.
I can't
You want to
relate.
do everything they do.
I'm the only child.
And I'm the only
So I guess I'm the only one here. But yeah, so I mean, you always want to emulate what they do, everything they do, you want to do. And I'll give you an example, and it starts with the smallest thing. And I mean, just from there to it goes to everything. So once my sister, when we were small, my sister was saying that, she wanted to go down to play. So she said, कि मैं नीचे खेलने जा रही हूँ. Normal, right? Normal sentence.
Uh-huh.
And I told
Even
my
you said
dad,
it.
I'm like, मैं भी नीचे खेलने जा रही हूँ because she is going, तो I'm gonna go. But I didn't just say मैं जा रहा हूँ. I said मैं जा रही हूँ because I didn't know. And to me, I just wanted to do what my sister did. So that really didn't change. I mean, till now it hasn't. I still really like get inspired by my sister and also highly influenced. And I think that change in me from just like a typical 16-year-old who wants to be popular in college, wants to be everywhere, wants to basically my goals are very different until I saw my sister, and I just got so inspired because the conversations I would have with her when she would share her goals with me, and her goals are like larger than life, almost like it's change the world type of goals. And when I heard those from her is what inspired me to search for my own purpose and my own goals. And I was like, damn, dude, I want to do something this big too. And that was like the biggest one single biggest influence in my life. And that's what led me to following the kind of people that I do follow today, other than my sister. And that is spiritual personalities and people like Sadhguru, Gaur Gopal Das, even Beer Biceps. The reason I follow him is only because of my sister. I had no idea who he was before that. He mentored my sister for certain things, and my sister met him, and that's how I was like, oh, she told me about him, and she was like, he does content about college clothing and personality, and I was like, oh, bro, who, like, never thought like 2-3 years ago there was no one else who was doing it. So I was like, yeah, dude, I want to up my game. I was like, I want to dress well, look sharp. So I was like, yeah, let's check it out. And I checked it out, and I was like, dude, what the fuck? And from there to today, even he does so much spiritual content. His podcast is fucking amazing. I mean, Make Sense are also pretty good. I mean,
subscribe. Go and subscribe to Make
yeah,
Sense.
guys, go subscribe now. Drop a like. But anyways, like, I mean, a lot of my inspiration comes from him. So, to say who's influenced me the most, it wouldn't be fair to say it's just one person, but I could say that the most compared to everyone else who's influenced me would be my sister, and that's led to me to the other people who also influenced me. So yeah, that's what it would be for me. Like, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Good. That's good. तू अभी भी नीचे खेलने जा रही है. But moving on, we've discussed how you'll find people these are the people you'll find very influential, and these are the influencers who have moved you or have made you be a better person. My question to y'all is, if your influencers or the people who are the most influential in your life end up becoming your virtual mentors, right? If you don't know them, otherwise your family is always your mentor. So other than family, your virtual mentors whom you see on the internet or around the world, if they told you to jump from a cliff, would you trust them so much to just jump off? So basically my question is, how much faith do you have in what they say? Do you immediately believe what they are saying, or do you sometimes challenge what they're saying?
So basically, like, do you blindly listen to everything they say, or sometimes do you, like, if you feel something they
This is
said is
actually a
not?
big problem because there are some influencers where their fans are so enchanted by them that they'll be willing to go to the various lengths to
We've seen fan wars and
Yeah.
with YouTubers as well. Like during the time when Bhuvan Bam and Amit Bhadana were both reaching 10 million, the fans were like, even T-Series,
Even this
PewDiePie, people just went crazy.
Yeah,
YouTube
yeah.
versus TikTok, dude, they brought the ratings of TikTok down to
Down
one
one.
star.
Yeah.
That's like a different like it's a complete, like it's a mess sometimes. But
Mhm.
for me, like, to answer that question, which was if my influencer asked me to jump off the cliff, the fact is I wouldn't, because the kind of people I follow also teach me to think,
Mhm.
which would also make me question why you're making me, because no matter like whoever I follow and whoever influences me, I'd rather not call influence, I'll call it inspire. Because when you get inspired by someone, you just look at what they're doing and then you go think for yourself, you do your own thing, rather than blindly following what that person says.
So, since you are a huge fan of Devdutt Patnaik,
Hmm.
if Devdutt Patnaik presents in front of you a uh, certain fact about the Shastras,
Hmm.
would you believe what he said, or do you go back and actually see if it's the truth?
Okay, because this is a very subjective thing, because it's specifically related to the Shastras. The issue with the Shastras is one is they're so old and there are so many interpretations to it. So when even Devdutt Patnaik gives us whatever he's talking about the Shastras, it's his reading of the Shastras, it's his understanding of the Shastras. It's not, whenever you read, say, the Rig Veda or any of the Vedas,
Hmm.
Upanishads, it might not be exactly what the original author said. Now we know that
Hmm.
Vedas compiled them, but Vedas did not come up with them. It has been passed down through generations and generations until Vedas wrote them down. So you can't ever know truly what that person means, and
And
no
also the
matter.
interpretation for each person could be different.
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
because this is where you're giving just specifically Devdutt Patnaik's example, is when he talks about the Shastras, it is always his way of looking at it. There are other ways of looking at it, but
So
I look
what
at
I
it
believe
through
is a
his eyes.
person. So what I believe is a person builds credibility enough, and you know he has enough goodwill that you can trust what he's putting in front of you. You're not gonna, and you know he's fact checking before he's coming and saying something.
Yeah,
That's what happens with Ranveer as well. Dear
Mhm.
biceps.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
he's the biggest youth YouTuber or influencer right now in the country. So exactly what I'm saying. So there's a credibility that you build over years or over your a span of certain time that makes you believe them, right?
yeah. I
But
mean, you have a reasonable amount of trust that you place in these people. Like when
hmm,
Devdutt Patnaik tells me that this was written in the Rig Veda, or this was written in the
hmm,
Upanishads, or in the Purans,
hmm,
because I know that he studied it for so many years, I don't have any rational reason to doubt him.
hmm,
Unless
hmm,
I've
hmm.
heard unless I've heard otherwise from someone. Then I will,
Okay, okay.
double check. But if it's something completely new to me, I
Hmm,
place a certain amount of faith in that person, in his abilities, in his knowledge, that I won't have to, go back and, start researching for myself. But if it's something that I'm kind of not sure about, or something that I question, then obviously I'll go and research.
Plus, I think it also depends on who you're following.
Yeah.
Like, if that
hmm.
person is propagating or if that person is influencing you in a way that you should think by yourself what your opinion is. So,
Yeah.
like, see, to answer your question, so see, I don't think anyone should blindly believe or listen to anyone. See, blindly believing itself is, according to me, I don't think anyone should do that for anything,
It's blind faith.
except if it's
For
like,
reference, go watch the first episode of Make Sense. It's called Black, White, or Grey.
yes, we'll link it up here on the right or left, wherever it comes. Basically, I wouldn't say that I blindly follow any of the people that I do. Like even if it's my sister, and if my sister tells me something, like see, if my sister tells me something that I know is good for me or that I know that I need to hear, then okay, like I'm obviously going to listen because I know that she's coming from a place of concern. She's coming from a place of experience, and she's coming from a place of that I want you to do better, so I'm telling you this. This is an example, but yeah, that's what
Hmm,
she would tell me things like that. That's what the intention would be. But if it's
hmm, hmm.
my sister telling me something that's not even connected slash irrational, which she wouldn't, but just for example, if my sister told me that go jump off this well and all your problems will go away, which is basically telling me, go kill yourself, so then you're free from all the. She wouldn't do
Go
that. This
attain
is just an
Nirvana right now.
example. But the point is that if someone told me that I wouldn't do it. And secondly, I don't think I would trust someone at a level or follow someone at a level that I do like. for example, my sister or Ranveer or whoever, if they said things like this, that blindly do this and whatever. And as Jaitra said earlier, like for example with Ranveer, whatever he says and whatever he talks about is highly scientific. If it's to do with your body, it's all facts. It's not something that he's just propagating, and it's also something that he's properly like researched and then he's talking about it. He's not just putting out stuff without researching it. So like yeah, basically the point is I don't think I would blindly follow, but secondly, I wouldn't follow if someone said things that I would have to blindly do.
So
Go.
moving forward, another thing about influencers is they want you to think what they think. Uh, wouldn't name a few people, but there's always a guy with a big beard who attacked a guy with a loud voice. So such people who have gone down to the level of trolling people and trolling people who don't think like them. How do we deal with such people in an environment that is actually driving people towards like aspiring people like y'all, me, and a lot of other youngsters who want to grow out of content? How do we filter these two things out?
Yeah, so a lot of like, when you get institutionalized with a narrative, because you never realize it, it's very subtly that it happens. Like when someone puts, their opinions along with facts, sometimes it's really nested into the facts and all, and it's very difficult for one to, find out whether draw a line when this becomes propaganda and when this becomes facts. And in some people, it's very distinct and very evident. I mean, from the examples that Kshetra gave, it's very evident. And I feel that it's also to do with whether or not how deep you're into that propaganda. Because if you're deep enough, then you won't mind it. But if you're, if you're just getting a whiff of it, you're gonna, get skeptical and maybe be smart enough not to be influenced by it or not take that content into your system rather than going in. But also it depends on how far in that pile of
No, but on similar lines of what Rahil said, comedians these days, as much as I enjoy watching them, as much as I enjoy their content and the way they, some comedians are actually putting positive content, but do you think every time, so comedians content for them and prospective content for them is always the ruling party?
I was
They
only talking about India, you're talking about like globally.
No, no,
globally,
India, I
I
think.
think,
Acha, oh, okay, globally.
but especially in India right now, from what I'm seeing, is I don't know why, but comedians are feeding upon bad things. I mean, I understand their argument of then कि joke किस पे बनाए फिर, but there are comedians who are not talking about like political issues, but and this has always been the case. If when the previous party was ruling, there were jokes about them as well, about the Pappu jokes and all of that. And the party which is currently our ruling party currently in our government, there's pure banter against them.
Yeah.
So as much as our generation is crazy about comedians, we all know that, right? So I just don't know. So that's what I wanted to say. That
Yep.
these guys, they're just feeding on. Obviously, they're doing a
Hmm.
good job being funny, but they
Yeah.
are feeding
But
on
I get it. I get it. I
negativity.
get it. So yeah, basically, I feel that there's a lot of comedians who are, just making jokes on the political scenario in the country. And as you said, bro, like I think it's a thing, like ruling party pe jokes. It's a very common thing. When the previous government was there, they made jokes on them, and when now the current government that's there, they're making jokes on them. And look, I agree that some things you can make jokes on, like it's good, totally cool. In fact, you can make jokes on whatever you want. I think that's still okay because fine, you want to make jokes on certain things, your choice, cool. But I think only making jokes on those things, plus only making jokes on things that are negative. Like, look, if you're constantly making jokes, after a point it does turn into propaganda because that's all you're talking about. You're just saying, "Arey, ye kharab, wo kharab, ye sahi
It's
nahi,
like
wo sahi nahi." But
you
there are some things.
unintentionally in your thing of becoming a joke become an opposition leader. Or like
Hmm.
Yeah,
start opposing the political party that you're
yeah,
making
yeah,
jokes on. But
yeah.
there, I
I
feel
mean,
there's a fine line between the humor and between trolling.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
like as long like there are some comedians who are very witty with their humor. They might make fun on politics. There's a comedian, an Indian comedian. I'm not going to name, but who is known worldwide. He not only like does jokes in India, but he does it abroad as well. But
Okay.
he's very witty in his humor. He doesn't troll anyone. I mean, he makes jokes
Yeah.
on the ruling part. Like in the US also, he makes jokes on their political parties. He makes jokes on even on our political parties. But it's never to a point where it's trolling or you find it so offensive that oh my god,
Hmm.
you
Basically, it's not propaganda. It's just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
jokes. Huh.
That's the kind of comedy I actually respect and I enjoy because it's
Hmm.
flavorsome. It's not anything which is sour in your propaganda or the way you're presenting. Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line between your comedy
Hmm.
and between trolling at to some extent. But it's not all
Yeah.
comedians who do that. There's different styles of comedy. So some who
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
are good with these political issues actually like, in my opinion, they go overboard with it sometimes. Some of them at least go, and there are a lot of comedians who this might not be their forte, so they don't touch on it. They just touch on
Hmm.
it lightly. But it's
Yeah.
a
Like.
topic that I mean all comedians touch on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's also, one thing that you said about, comedians actually talking about the ruling party and all. It's if you actually, this is to do with comedians, this is to do with court jesters. So in the era of the kings, especially in the British courts, they had someone called a jester, whose
Who
only
was the
job,
Joker, no?
yeah,
Basically.
yeah, who was the
Huh.
joker, but his jokes were not. He was actually like a courtier. He was like the birbal, but
Huh.
Hmm.
for the English courts, and he wasn't. He was a intelligent person, and the jester was the only person in the court who was allowed to criticize the king to his face.
Ah.
And that was actually one very it was a good system in what I feel is because that person can jokingly present to the king his follies so that the king can
Hmm.
actually improve. It was
Hmm.
like
It's like
in
keeping
a
you on the
But
ground.
the king
It's
can always fire him, right?
in a
yeah. Yeah.
the kings actually never did. Kings actually never. The court
Oh.
jesters were actually one of the highest ranking officials in the king's court. They was very close to the king, and the kings never fired him because it was very important for the kings to even hear criticism.
I mean,
Like,
rational kings.
yeah, there are
Yeah. Not
some
all,
crazy,
but
crazy
the
ones,
ones
but
who were rational and basically
yeah,
to keep
that
them.
was the entire idea behind the system of the jester.
Hmm. Yeah. So that's like Rahul said about the code jester part. Hopefully we have something like that in our system as well again, but wouldn't last long. Moving on to the last and final part of this discussion. If you all had to name three influencers, I give you all the liberty to go above three, but if you all had to name three influencers whom you all would suggest to all our viewers to watch without fail because they have moved you all or affected your lives in certain ways, who would the three be? Would you all, who, Anwar, would you want to start?
Yeah, I already the names came to my head instantly. So for me, bro, number one is beer biceps. Ranveer Arabadia. Number one, hands down, because especially during lockdown, dude, the kind of content he's been putting up, it's been so helpful. And I think it's been helpful for a large group of people, not just me. So, and I know it has been for you also. And Rahil, you should also check
Mm,
some more of his content out because
Yeah,
I really think like it'll be super helpful.
mm,
And yeah, so that's number one for sure. And then second for me would be Sadhguru because I've been like I always followed him. It's probably been a year since I've properly followed him, but especially during the lockdown, dude, like almost every day I've seen videos of his. I read his book during the lockdown called Inner
mm,
Engineering, and it's just been so eye-opening in many ways.
mm,
So yeah, dude, like for me, second would be Sadhguru. So my third person would be Tanmay Bhatt, I guess. So I've been following him a lot again. This is all during the lockdown that's happening. Before that, I didn't follow his individual channel much, which he started almost a
mm,
year ago, I think. And before that, I mean, I think it was the same for all of us. We followed AIB, so we watched him in AIB. It was
mm,
mostly comedy stuff, and now he's like gone into so many different areas of content. There's gaming, there's still a little bit of stand up, there's comedy to all the time. There is his podcast which he's recently started, and on that podcast channel also he has like 3 4 different kinds of podcasts or stuff that he talks
Podcasts.
about. Yeah,
Genres.
genres. So it's yeah. So I mean, again, because Tanmay Bhatt's podcast channel especially is so much self growth related, self
Hmm.
knowing related, and also because he doesn't just do that, he also does stuff that's funny, that's light, and that's keeping humor. I just
Hmm.
think it's a very well balanced channel that he runs, and
Hmm.
the kind of content he puts out is just, I don't know, very well rounded. For me, it works really well. So I guess, even though I did say earlier that I'll name one, two more, for me, I think right now, top three people I would say that you must follow, and there's an abundance of learnings from these three people. I would say Beer Biceps, Sadhguru, and Tanmay Bhatt. Yeah.
Rahul,
Okay,
what
just
are your
before
three?
I say, I just want to say that we aren't being paid by anyone to promote anyone. I'm just saying that
Of
these are the
course,
people who we genuinely follow, and we
we
are
also
just
don't
like
need to
letting
promote
you.
them.
Okay,
So Rahul, what's your three?
yeah. So I don't exactly have three, but like I said in the very beginning, there's not any specific person that I follow, but I do recommend like you go if you can check out interviews by Ratan Tata. If you can go check out interviews by Field Marshal Manik Shaw. I mean, his interviews very recently because I've just been watching. As for a matter of fact, I watched his interview today, and he's actually influenced. Like he's taught me certain things about being a leader, being a better person. Having
Hmm.
integrity in times of thick and thin. Then I also recommend you watch The Great Dictator speech by Charlie Chaplin. It's not anything that would inspire or influence you, but it was definitely something that would resonate with you because it's something that plays to entire humankind. That and even the Pale Blue Dot speech by Carl Sagan. These two speeches are actually some speeches that have really resonated with me and made me think about life, like the Carl Sagan speech when he talks about the pale blue dot and he puts into perspective how small your problems are as compared to the vastness of that universe. When you are really struggling with issues and when you're really stressed out with your work and you feel like the world is coming down, you feel like the world is ending because coronavirus, oh my god, then you listen to that speech and you realize how small we are in comparison to what there is out there, and it really puts you into perspective. And I
Who
don't
speaks
draw
that again? Can you
inspiration.
repeat that? Sorry, can you repeat the name?
It's The Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan. So because I have never derived influence from any specific person, these are speeches, these are people whose speeches and like interviews I see, and I derive inspiration from them, and these are just a few of them. There are for sure many more, and I'm pretty sure missing out a lot of people, but I can learn from anyone. I can even learn from both of you. I mean,
Yeah, for sure. I think there's
some,
learning from everyone, dude. Like anyone
yeah,
can be a guru, and I think
Yeah.
it's a little bit in
Yeah.
something that I just want to say, but I think learning never stops. I mean, I guess everyone. I mean, even though it's such an obvious statement, I think
Hmm.
everyone doesn't like know that or doesn't follow that. But yeah, dude, anyone can be a guru, and you should just accept that and keep learning. I think that would
That's
really
so
make a
just
that's
difference.
wanted to say one thing is no matter how much you hate a person, there's always something to learn from everyone. No matter
Yeah,
how
exactly.
horrible you think that person is, you'll always
Hmm.
Yeah,
find something to learn
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's true.
100%.
That's true. I've highly influenced both of y'all. Coming to my three influencers that I want to suggest to y'all. Before, so Anvay has covered a few of them already. So has Rahul. But I'll just repeat them and then tell my three. First is definitely Ranveer Alabadia, Beer Biceps, because he has led me to those influencers to look at them and he's been that
Yeah,
point source to many other
bridge,
smart
the
people.
bridge that
Yeah,
took you to the other end.
100%. And second is again definitely Tanmay Bhatt because a huge fan with AIB in like AIB times and all of that. Going through that entire phase of depression, rising like a phoenix, and then just the independent status that he's gained now with two channels, with the podcasting, the absolutely funny PUBG streams, and uh, influencing
TikTok
other
videos
comedians
too.
as well to create that entire community where he made Samay Raina become the biggest chess streamer probably in the country.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's just craziness from one person, and what he's doing is just absolutely brilliant. One person doing so many things is he he has supreme talent, and what he and I just can feel the good intention behind him, because every time in his chat, when you see when he's streaming and he's talking about certain issue, if the chat goes overboard with if it goes overboard with making the insults or the humor, it becomes bullying. He'll abuse his chat and tell them to stop. He'll be like, "Bus now,
Yeah,
you don't need to do that." And he literally I know that he cares for his community that he's built online, because I can see him wanting to have those neuroscience streams where he wants to
yeah,
Yeah,
talk
dude.
about. These are just
dude,
That,
amazing,
yeah,
and getting a 10,000 watching on that is crazy. And there's no one who can do it better than him with his humor. That tinge
yeah,
of
dude.
humor that he has, there's no one who can do it better than him. So these are my two leading. Now Ranveer Alapadhyay has led me to three other people. First is Gaur Gopal Das. Earlier I said that I usually take some amount of content and then I can, you know, become a fan of that person. But Gaurav Gopaldas' voice is just so, soothing, and the way he speaks about everything so scientifically, with his background being so like so professional, and he was working at Hewlett Packard, and he was an engineer, probably the second best institute in the in the state of Maharashtra. From that to taking up monkhood and living at the monastery, and what he preaches about the Bhagavad Gita, or say for other things as well. It just, even at such a young age, I can connect with him, with like connect with what he's saying. So Gaur Gopal Das definitely. Second is Radhakrishna Pillai. I have three books by him. I've read all of that. I'm a huge fan of Chanakya and his writings, because of which Radhakrishna Pillai is the best Chanakya writer in the world, and his facts about ancient India and all of that, absolutely crisp. I'm big fans of people who talk about ancient India. And moving on to my third influencer is Amish Tripathi. I didn't mention him earlier about how he, spoke about how one person can in one go just make you attracted towards his mind. And Amish Tripathi completely did that. He's a 44-year-old man, but I can imagine having a bro to bro
Yeah,
conversation with him where he'll completely
especially
enlighten me
after
at the
the
end of it.
podcast which they
Yeah,
did with
definitely.
Ranbir. Yeah,
I
yeah,
saw after I want to read. I'll definitely look forward to reading his books. I saw a lot of his videos online, but the facts he threw just blew me away. And I suggest all of you people out there who have doubt about the Indian culture and who do not respect it enough, or have and who believe that the Westerners came and civilized us. So and there are many people our age who believe that the Western civilization is the shiz. But listen to that man. He'll put you in your place and tell you the power and the strength behind the Indian culture and civilization. So that's been us for today, guys. I hope you like what we do. So please go and like the video, subscribe as well. Please leave a comment so that we feel nice about ourselves. And keep watching Make Sense. Say bye, guys.